Today, my guest is Roberto Capodieci. People talking about working with you, and they highlight how great you are in communication. First of all,
I am passionate of communication and specialized in the past 10 years, 15 into decentralization, peer-to-peer system, 10 years especially blockchain.
tell me about your work with Decentralization AI.
For sure, what they say, and which I agree, the compute is going to be the currency of the next future.
On this point, I have a very fun example, finance P2P. Hello, my name is Alex Ellis, and this is Big Performance Podcast. Today, my guest is Roberto Capodieci. Right? Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Can you tell us about what you do and your expertise?
Sure. I work in the world of IT, software, and I am passionate of communication and specialized in the past 10 years, 15 into decentralization, peer-to-peer system, 10 years especially blockchain, but that's very much what I do. I do consulting for a company. I run a few business of mine and a partner with things. I enjoy life. I live in Asia and being Italian, and after spending 12 years in the United States. So I I try to have a little bit, leave my DNA around the world.
I saw people talking about working with you, and they highlight how great you are in communication, first of all, and but then they highlight the depths of your support on the projects where they say you go in there, figure out the stuff, and help with massive expertise. What kind of projects you were engaged with in the last few years?
Well, the the role of a consultant in terms of finding the correct solution, the correct architecture, infrastructure to specific issues that clients may have, really require this kind of skill set, right? In order to provide the best. And when it comes to run a company, all the companies that are whose income is generated by intellectual exercise require an exceptional care of people. Meaning that if you have a printing company, you spend $1 million for the printing machine, and then you put Homer Simpson to press the button there, then is easily replaceable. But if you run something where people are creating the product for the client, that's your machine, right? So people are the best asset to work with, also because they're humans, and humans are nice people to deal with, and one. And so I love the idea that bringing the best to the table, either inside the company that I manage or with a client doing consulting and working with their teams, helps to bring the best product as well as a final result. And I know I have a little bit of white beard that gives me away. I just turned 50 years old a few days ago. But this is many years of experience. I started working in software when I was very little. I started learning to code when I was 5 years old. So I really have an extensive experience, both how computer works, how IT system works, and how people that work with computer works. So that's what is my advantage, and what I bring to the table. And sorry, to reply your question about what project I've been involved recently, mostly around the blockchain and decentralization. So I've been doing work both for a customized solution for different clients, from banking to large other institution, governative and private. And then we work on a particular project that involves a lot of R&D for a new kind of protocol. And the past 2 years, I've been working in AI, and not AI in terms of the machine learning aspect, even though I study those things, but in decentralizing AI, because my specialization is decentralization. AI is in the hand of just a few people, and they have big data center. We don't know how it's trained. So I think the ideal future of AI is to have a peer-to-peer network that run pieces of the brain in the hand of many different people in the many different culture, and to have a really democratic AI that has all the flavor of what it can answer, and people can choose how to use it. And also been involved in play to earn, which is something that usually is connected to bad things like scam and stuff like that. But this was very ethical and very smart, and it works very particularly for a particular niche, which is people flying with flight simulators. So that has been also still a very amazing experience, and doing in bringing the Web3 side into this kind of work. So that's what I can do to answer your question.
Thanks. Uh, Interesting how you started coding when you were 5. How did that happen? What kind of surrounding you had growing up?
Well, my father, my late father, was a genius mathematician. He was coming out with his own things. You could give him like a two number of 50 digit each, and he was calculating the multiplication by hand without calculator or anything. He was really impressive as things, and he loved science and mathematics. My mother, on the other hand, more artistic, but still also she had a mathematics degree from university, and so we had this strong mathematics aspect in the house, in the DNA. I loved mathematics. I remember when I was in the first grade, they started explaining the first number. I was so excited, you know. I never studied story or geography because there either you learn it or you don't know it. But everything else was coming logically to me. It was applied. And when I was 5, my father used to travel internationally. So he came back from Asia, from Japan, I think it was, with the programmable calculator. I had the first thing, and he showed me this thing, and I got fascinated. And I stole it from him, and I started hiding in a corner and reading this manual in English, which was Arabic to me because I had no idea what it was written. And slowly, the like coping software, and then my parents being smart enough to cultivate this passion I had, supporting it, purchasing first computers, and they made to some people that told me more. And then in my career, I started developed and sold my first video game when I was 10 years old. So that was pretty neat.
Was it in Italy?
That was in Italy, yes. The platform was the Commodore VIC-20 first, then he developed, so there were Olivetti Italian machine that I don't know if was sold around the world, and then Commodore Amiga, and then PCs, so on and so forth. But it was quite interesting. I also did a lot of hacking and telecommunications, connections via internet. Hacking in a good term now, in a criminal aspect of the word, the connotation of the word now as taking the one of the criminal, but it was really more like a deep way R&D, search experiment to find the particular functions in electronic devices. It was
I understand like ethical side of hacking, where basically community contributes into the security of the service.
it is a really more a modern point of view, but the first hacking group with the manifesto, it was people playing with the model trains, actually, right? So they were meeting there, so passion of electronics. So is the idea that you can use something for a different means of what is originally been built for. You find the small particular different usage of things. And on the phone network, there was a huge application of functionality of this phone system that were not published to the public, but you can discover them getting to the manual of those things. So it was really like something you can do when you have a lot of time, you're a kid. I was spending the day the phone booth dialing random number to see what happened, just to discover a new one. So it has been really travel. I loved that from Italy I can dial somebody in Japan, and this person come to the phone, and thinking that from Italy I can make somebody in Japan get up from their chair and come to the phone. It was really making it really powerful, like the idea of reaching such a remote place with my thing. So, can you imagine, even before internet, there were networks where you can communicate or share material and stuff. So it was for sure very exciting things, similar to the radio that the radio amateurs have. In fact, there are two words that go parallel.
Yeah. Can you tell me about some of your education endeavors? For example, blockchain zoo project.
Sure. Blockchain Zoo was born with the intention to make an association of experts that I can vouch for, because there's so many people coming to me asking me about consultant developers in the realm of blockchain, and I didn't really know many that I could put my hand on the fire. Just say this is somebody honest, somebody that works well. So creating Blockchain Zoo was the initial intention was the one of really group people, guarantee that the knowledge was good. And being able to vouch for them when they want to work with the third party. And then we got so much request to work. They became a small money machine, and we've been working on that quite a lot. Uh, Now, my intention, I bought out all the other business partners, and my intention is to restart with the original goal of having an association of experts, which makes more sense now because there are so many more people that claims to know. They have a nice LinkedIn profile. They're very good at selling themselves, but with not much substance underneath. So the importance to be able to say, okay, this person has the experience, this person knows. So it's somebody that you can work with no issue is quite important. Now that we enter a stage of real implementation, no more a bubble, but the technology is going to be applied for real problem and for real solution, not just to do pump and dump of coins or ICOs, etc.
And what would be the next step after you form the circle of experts? And that would be like providing those people with job or having it in a having a think tank that would have people coming to you as a community.
As of today, many client comes to me with the project, and we put together a team that can work. Sometimes they have some teams abroad, which is Vietnam, India, or sometimes they want to get one new to do some particular things or work with their own IT department. I think that the possibility to provide the right people, so you just create it should be a real non-profit things to be very well organized. They really bridge these things between the demand and the offer, simply with the guarantee of a quality of the people and also the client, because there are a lot of dangerous, let's say, not very ethical clients. So you want to make sure that people that work can trust the people that they work with, and vice versa.
You are talking about decentralization. That would mean that people are more educated. And I just don't see that happening. People get less and less educated and less qualified to manage their own data. So, how can decentralization happen if people are only capable of reading because they wanted to go to Instagram and post their picture?
It is a very, very good point that you make. I do believe that the humans are an animal that adapt very fast. And there have been many challenges that hit us that require very strong change of habit, very strong, adaptations. Just in Europe, when we moved from local currencies to euro in the whole Europe, I thought that people would be much more resistant to the change, get in difficult situation, but everybody complied and changed very fast. I think that decentralizing is something that is going to happen, doesn't matter what, because it's a phase of the evolution. We are in an era, like we had the bronze, metal era, stone age, whatever it is, and then the industrial aging era, and now we are in the information one, and we start digitizing stuff, and now transmitting data. Now we have unicity, And if you think at the beginning of the emails were a really federated network. So every office has their own mail server. And when you send an email to somebody in another office, it goes from your computer to your mail server in your office, and from your office to the other person's office, and then they receive the mail. Some places still like this, but the 99.9% of the mail in the world now goes through Gmail, Outlook, Yahoo, and a few others, because they end up centralizing all the communication system, which is not very good. It's nice the service that they offer, and they're free, which should make people wonder why. At the same time, if we can re-decentralize the communication, encrypt them, we are more protected and we are more direct. If you think the 5G technology in a cell phone really work in a decentralized manner, meaning the connection are point to point without going through the central part. But the 5G offers are always a flat rate because it's very hard for a phone company to measure the consumption. And this is the tendency that we are going through. All the peer-to-peer network to talk, which is a messaging system, etc., etc. People on the behind doesn't even know what happened. People are consumer. Consumer want something that work, they can trust, and they're okay. But the evolution behind, the what happened behind the scenes is something that evolves. When you go for decentralization in terms of blockchain, where there is the seed, the private key to manage, etc., are more complex. And nothing has to be binary, either centralized fully, decentralized fully. There can be hybrid solution that leave some part in the decentralized manner, other part that are managed. There is a necessity and importance in regulation law. So there are a lot of aspects that need to be taken care of, right? So it's not so extreme on both sides. People has the right to forget their password, let's say, and they need to recover it. And slowly we are at the early stage of this transition toward decentralization, but there is a necessary step and inevitable, I think. So is a tendency we're going the direction, like the current, the push of the sea, the push us in the direction. I think there is no escape.
It's interesting how the technology goes towards decentralization, but people go towards centralized technology.
No,
Give
it's not
me
true.
the already made service. When I was in school, one of my teachers said that until we learn to code C sharp, there is nothing we should be doing on the internet.
No.
And
I
then when I was learning, I think I am the last of my generation who tried to create an email server by myself, using stuff. So I was looking into that to understand the technology, what is exactly happening, and how to make it this server live. Now you just sign up for Gmail, and that's
right.
the only thing that you try.
There are phases in everything. Like I think easy life, everybody like it better, right? Why I should choose the harder life until you see the damage that this does to you? A good analogy is with food. Massively industrialized produced food is more convenient. It's cheaper. You find it behind the corner from home, but in the overall, it's not healthy for you. And in fact, people now is starting to go and buy from the farmer nearby, or they make collective in order to purchase. In the masses, this is not happening, but it's a trend that they move in the direction. And this push those that make the big money to adapt and offer something that people want. Because at the end of the day, people don't realize, but the people are what create the demand. And the demand is supplied by an offer. So if everybody wants the fast food is gonna be there. Suddenly, fast food is no more needed. They close down. It's really what the people want. They move. We are manipulated by advertisement, commercial, or whatever you want. I agree with that. But at the end of the day, the consciousness of knowing what you want or what is more adapt brings you in a certain direction. In the moment that there is a tangible difference about using something decentralized compared to something centralized, look about Friday night you have the urgency to access on your money for whatever reason. You need to wait Monday morning, go to the bank and convince the bank manager to let you access your money because there's something strange. If you have a crypto, it can be 3 in the morning. At the same time, you're drunk in the bar and there is the beautiful person that you like, and you send all your money to this person. So, on the other side, what you were saying before is correct. You need the responsibility of doing things. I love a small plugin that there is in Gmail that if you are writing an email at 3 in the morning, ask you a small mathematical operation before the mail is sent, just to be sure that you are conscious and able to understand what you're doing in order to avoid the embarrassment of other things. But that's really part of a natural selection that happens in terms of service provider, users, and what people do, what people want. I do believe that we are going the direction, and that people is going to adapt to it.
Tell me about your work with decentralization AI, because currently we see like the most, maybe we will see of centralized AIs with ChatGPT and the others. But at the same time, we see sparks of the use of highly customized models that are super tailored to my needs that I can host basically on my machine.
Yeah, I mean, uh, the for sure what they say, and which I agree, the compute is going to be the currency of the next future. Not much, at least in the world of IT, right? So when who can compute can do. Tendency to have centralized things allow to have a certain kind of service, for sure. I run a lot of models in my machine. I have a computer that is quite powerful and that can do so. But I think the evolution of this also doesn't require a binary aspect, 100% decentralized, 100% centralized. But the risk of having something that is in the hand of somebody, we saw what happened with the a model that are trained with a bias. There is a political agenda. There is, if there was all the scandal of what the analytical things with Facebook that say they were convincing people to vote one party rather than another. And Facebook is quite a passive thing. There are people that don't live without ChatGPT, that there is their friends and their dialogue of a daily decision, what to do, what they ask for breakfast. That there is really, and you have a machine that has all the knowledge of the planet and can think million of times faster than a human. Okay, and for now it's still pseudo control. But if you think a service like this is free but is sponsored by a chain of restaurant, don't you think that we as human are so gullible, so easily manipulated, that tomorrow you don't realize why, but you're still going all the time to eat in the restaurant because subliminally it's like uh, dangerous that we don't have the full control of what we are told by these, pseudo human that we interact with every day. So the specialized model of what they use agents now, the upload of specific knowledge and things, is one of the evolution. But AI exists since the longest, but in the past 2 years, it evolved to a speed, that is incredible. Nvidia is coming out with chips that are so powerful and so small that we possibly gonna have the opportunity to run our own model at home, microserver at home on our computer and our devices without having to rely outside. For some stuff, compute service rented outside can be useful, and no discussion about that. For other things, think there are. NVIDIA was coming out with the chip that can work with models that are encrypted. And people start going, oh my God, crazy. Here we cannot even control because all the open source model, sometimes are leaked, sometimes are actually built. And the idea that a model can be encrypted is a little bit concerning because you don't know what it is. But if you are like a law firm, there are 70 years of history, and you, as you were saying, train your own model with 70 years of work of your law firm to use it as a consultant internally for working. Surely you don't want somebody to steal the model. That's the worth of your intellectual property of 70 years of story of your office. In that case, it makes absolute sense that you keep the model encrypted and only the in-house server has the card with the decryption, hardware decryption keys to work with those models, right? So there are application and uses that justify more centralized, more customized, personalized, and other uses justify the centralized aspect. So I don't say that one is wrong, one is right. I say that everything on one side is wrong. Even everything decentralized will be wrong. Like there are things that make sense that are handled by a particular entity to provide the service to others. There are other things that should not be in the hand of somebody that need to be trusted. And, those are going to hopefully go in the right place against the interest of the power of some, which is the difficult aspect. People choose that's the power we have.
What is your position on cryptocurrency front? Like, do you still see the decentralization case with this balance of people liking the easy stuff and companies and governments trying to control people through providing easy access to stuff? So we had quite a period of time where cryptocurrencies were available, and now we have big companies and governments coming with centralized cryptocurrencies.
Technology is a technology, right? A piece of technology is a piece of software. It has no feelings and nothing else. It can be used in many ways. It can be adopted in many ways. So what is more appealing and makes sense? Then there are laws and regulations. Okay. I was very fascinated when music and movies were pirated online at the beginning of, and there was this Napster, email, etc., that were centralized servers that were coordinating a network of computers to distribute these things. Those were easy target for government. In fact, the legislation was about it's illegal to distribute pirate movies. As soon as BitTorrent came out, with a real peer-to-peer network without a central server or coordination, they could not stop it. They cannot legislate something like this. So what they start doing, they start making illegal to consume this thing, right? And it was very significant for me this aspect because they really shows the power of a real flat, let's say, peer-to-peer network where each node is important as many other nodes. That you can kill one, that make no difference, right? Everything still survive. And that's what brought me into decentralization at the time with Torrent. I started studying the protocols, started designing other decentralized protocols. And this is what I think has, the power of resisting. For cryptocurrency and the attempt to replace it or not, honestly, except the first few years of Bitcoin, there is so much centralization. As soon as you use a mobile application in your phone to deal with crypto, this application is not connected to the peer-to-peer network. It's connected with a single server that talks with the peer-to-peer network. And there is a centralized point of connection, right? When you see the balance of an account, you're not reading from random node of the network. You read it from a service like Kura or the provider, API provider, they give balances. They can make you see what they want. The decentralization is not there. There is a principle of decentralization, but we still, even all these Web3 things, they are highly centralized. So many applications that call home with data information. There is an illusion of decentralization. That's why I say we are at the early days. People start understanding what it is. They think they're using it. They're not using it, okay? Because the truth is that but we're gonna move in the direction as soon as the more technically oriented people start understanding it, because even developers, that's something that kills me. When I start coding, you need to know the bottom layer of the computer. Now there are so many dependencies, so many layers of platform that people use, that to make a Hello World application is 50 megabyte of application. And you wonder, and what there is there. People, they don't even know. They don't even care. It's like when you drive the car, you don't know how the engine is working in the car, right? Which is good if you want to get to a certain place. But it's dangerous if you don't know and you have the need to guarantee certain things, stability, security, privacy. When you depend on a lot of layers, you don't really know what happened underneath. Machines that are always connected online, because there is no computer today that doesn't connect. The first thing that they ask you before you can turn it on, give me internet, buy a new Apple, buy a new Windows. You cannot even start if you don't connect to the internet, a cell phone, everything. This is wrong, highly, highly wrong. I think that even open source hardware is going to start flooding, and then there is going to be the choice what machine you want to work with for what. People can choose, to have one or another, or a point in between.
On this point, I have a very fun example. Binance P2P. I was like,
Binance.
this is amazing. They put the words P2P there, but there is nothing peer-to-peer about it. Both people are signed up with Binance, and Binance controls the transaction
Everything.
completely. So I'm like, what is it?
Not only, there are also blockchain that host all their node in AWS. So how are you decentralized now? Okay, just because they're different instances, but they are all in the hand of one person. What does change? Put a central server, give me your offers, and it's the same. That's what I'm saying. There is an illusion of decentralization because the core systems are centralized. It's like if I do a decentralized application and the whole query ChatGPT that is centralized, then it's centralized. At the point was the point to make it decentralized, right? But in the moment that even the core servers, let's go even down to the internet protocol. The way that the infrastructure of internet goes around the world is insane. There are purposely made routing that go, and I tried this many times. If you trace route one connection, one ping of between an IP address and another, many times the message goes through server in the United States, server in the Middle Europe, when there is no absolute need of that. You can take a very short route from point A to point B. This is why the hope in something like Starlink. If I connect satellite, my home, Starlink network down to the satellite to somebody else's home, okay, skip the aspect of the internet. In the case, I am in a really decentralized connectivity, okay? Those, constellation of satellite act as a peer-to-peer network if you want. But who knows, because I don't have one of those satellites in my hand to analyze this.
When I was researching for this call, I thought about those things that we're talking about, the balance between centralization and the requirement, the level of savviness people need to demonstrate to be able to become agents in their own IT life. And then I thought about Tesla, who was researching the free energy for people. And it never happened. We are still using fossil fuels, and we are still buying all our energy needs from big companies and government. So with cryptocurrency and decentralization, what do you think is the time period that we are looking at while hoping for getting there still?
That's a very difficult question to answer because, is sometimes things are surprising. The things that make something grow fast is the practicality of the use. When they say it's not rocket science, the beautiful of a rocket science is you see the rocket going up the sky. When you apply the same difficulty to something that works behind the scene, people don't see it. So it's hard to appreciate. You know what I mean? ChatGPT took off because you open the window, right, you get an answer. So even somebody with the 2-digit IQ can get an appreciation of this thing, okay? But if you think about biochemistry or I don't know some other nanotechnologies, etc., you have just a few geeks that appreciate the news. The rest of the world has no capacity or interested in becoming excited for some stuff. So the support, the massive support, because the wealth is made by the billions of people that are in this world, right? In using something, it doesn't reach that. So it's the biggest difficulty is always to give a useful, practical, simple use to things that are complex. So cryptocurrency works because even though being complex and complicated to use, DeFi even more are practical. People see the effect. Okay, other technology that are really supporting just something behind have a longest deployment period unless they can come out with something that cannot be done with anything else but that technology. So like Nvidia, think Nvidia as a company, they don't have anything functional to the public. It's not that you buy the Nvidia button and you do something with it, okay? They are behind the scene, but they manage to tackle a couple of things gaming. So I like gaming. And then I learned that I need an Nvidia to play my game properly. I like AI, which is practical and direct. So then I learned I need an Nvidia to do. So in these terms, they have success. In fact, they invest and they finance whatever is in front because that's what brings them success. And when something is decentralized for real, is done by the public, because you cannot have a blockchain that has the interest of one single person because it becomes centralized. Is always a collective effort. And when you have a collective effort, it's even more difficult to organize, to get a foundation that has the capacity to move the thing. So those are not easy things. But as soon as we have a practical functionality that replace the one that is costly, then you have the fast success and fast reach for the technology. Think about the replacement of a short message, system, SMS, the text messages with internet-driven messaging systems that are free, where you pay just the internet connection. And yet the banks still use it because the regulator don't have regulated the system like in certain country they start like WhatsApp recognize like a public messaging system with those private of Facebook, which is scary and dangerous on one side, but before it was in the hand of the phone company, which was scary too, and wasn't even encrypted, which was worse. So, like a bad idea to send SMS with a code for accessing the bank. That's a very bad idea because it can be intercepted and used very easily, more easily than a message sent through Telegram.
Can you explain me something probably very basic to you, but for me, I still have doubts. This notion that compute is the currency. It can be the currency when we see that why it is the currency, because compute can produce labor. So, like very close to Marxism, the theory. So we when computer is capable of producing labor, we assign value to it. So it is currency. But if computers can produce faster value better than humans, something must devaluate either the compute or the
For
value
the
it
human,
produces. Oh, this is just, yeah. What is it?
Well, that's a very good point that you make, actually. And I was thinking about electricity. Electricity has a very interesting aspect. There are some countries that produce it constantly, like France has a lot of nuclear power. So a nuclear power, don't shut it down for the night. If you have a cold system in the night, you don't need electricity, you reduce the production. But other things are constantly producing. And an overloaded grid is a danger for a country. And there is a brokerage and a commerce of electricity all around the world. There are people sitting there that purchase electricity from a side of the world when there is night, there is no use, rent all the grid to resell it, hundreds, thousands of kilometers away, like between France and Russia, or there is really like a commerce of a good that if it's not used, is thrown away. So now, when you come to compute, and this was the analogy, you get something that probably can be distributed. So you have a very high computing power. They already do it in some project. There were some research that made the screensaver. The when you have the screensaver active, you borrow some of your CPU to the research. So they send packet of data to analyze, your computer analyze them, and they solve. I think a kid won a good prize because there was a password that was so hard to crack, and this kid did like the screensaver with very beautiful woman there. So there was a amount of guy that installed it, and in a few days he had a computing power of hundreds of CPUs, if not thousands of CPUs that work on his problem. This is the meaning, I think, of the currency of the future can be computing, because where the need of computing is high and is higher of the normal capacity of a cell phone, because let's say honestly, very less and less people has a computer at home or a notebook. 90% of people does with a cell phone in the world. So cell phones are relatively powerful, but they need to use applications that are powerful. So you end up paying for a third party to run your processing. And this is going to be the highest demand because we have more and more demanding application. So they require, mostly with AI, with all these new things, require a lot of processing power. People that can sell it, processing power is going to make money. So that's, I think, close to the point, meaning that it's no more the work of building something, it's the more of the work of using. So the value of using something rather than building and selling it. It's consumption. Yeah.
Well, so that is already happening. My team pays for ChatGPT. My team pays for Midjourney. Those generative AI systems, they compute that we cannot render on our
but this is exactly
laptops.
The point, right? That's exactly the point. Think that tomorrow you can buy a computer for $50 because it become a terminal. Your processing power of the computer is all remote, together with your data, together with your privacy, together with your personal photo and things, which is the concerning part for me. I rather decentralize and have a $50 computer that rely on a decentralized system where I have a guarantee, at least of, no manipulation, but there you go. That's gonna be the choice of the people, the convenience and the pricing and the speed. That centralized things are faster and more convenient. It's no doubt about it.
Yeah, my feeling is that convenience and price would be a bigger deciding factor than privacy and security.
At least there is a choice. At least there is a choice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If McDonald's is cheaper than a nice restaurant, go there, eat there every day, and you become like me, but you don't. See, at the end of the day, also that is a choice. If I have the possibility to eat fast food that is made with processed things that are bad, whatever you want, or go in another door and eat, things that are healthier, I have the freedom of the choice to where to to go eat, and I can alternate it. I can invite 50 friends. I go to McDonald's. If I invite only my wife, I go to the fancy restaurant. Maybe I don't know, but it will be the possibility to say certain things I do it here, certain things I do it there. If I play a video game, I don't care that my status of the video game, my computer is remote. If I'm doing my secret research, I don't want to have things shared around. It's going to be centralized in my home. If I do my regular things, it's going to be decentralized in a peer-to-peer network.
What would you advise to people who do want to exercise their choice? They do want to learn more about security and be more aware and in control of their data. What would
Well,
you advise them
the
learning
first
or going to?
the first step is understanding what this is all about, right? So just go watch a couple of YouTube video on the topic, just get informed and have your own opinion on things, because there is people that blindly trust the third parties, and they're gonna be happy with that. I'm not judging. And again, I'm not saying that it's bad or good. I'm saying that there should be a choice and option. Like I have an option to install my own web server at home. Still, mail server, sorry, at home. Even a web server at home if I want to, and it's gonna work perfectly. All right, there is no. It's more convenient to go to Gmail. So, that's exactly the point of the possibility of choice. Many things finance are highly regulated and forcefully going through institutions that are licensed. Blah blah blah. They should be the free choice to use one or the other. And is like competition is good because it makes parties better, right? In the moment that you are the only one florist in town where people can go buy flowers because all the other florists are illegal, you can sell crappy flowers. Who cares? Because anyway, you are the one selling them. If suddenly more florists are opening next to you and they sell flowers of rainbow color, then you better step up with the quality of your flowers, and then the city is gonna have better flowers. So in the moment that there is DeFi, in fact, all this fintech movement is born because of technology on the other side was offering alternatives that were nicer. Not in finance itself. Fintech started with ATM machines, produce automatic tellers, that's a financial technology. But it evolved as of today to banks that need to compete, to investments that are higher risk but can be done in a decentralized manner, which I suggest not to do because people should never put money they can lose instantly. So it's like a casino. I'm not a financial advisor, but my advice is don't. But meaning is a choice. So the standard financial institution now need to look at these things as well, and step up their game in order to be competitive, because it is an open market, and this should be on everything. The more consciousness people has, the more is free to choose one or the other.
Right. And what is your ideal project? The project where you will jump on the opportunity to be on the advisory board, to get your hand dirty in the crafting of the core offer.
Code. I love to code. I resume my coding like 6-7 months ago. I started recoding some applications that were crappy coded and encoded in C, which is not C++. C is really one root language that is limited and is difficult to code in a way that is stable. And I choose it in purpose because it's stepping up of it is easier after that. And it's beautiful, it's fascinating. Obviously, my brain is worth it more doing other things than sitting and coding, but that's my hobby, right? So I love to do consulting. I love really to find the best solution to a company problem. I love to help problem to step up their game. A problem company, sorry, I'm a little bit dyslexic today. It's a little bit of seeing that my experience can be put at play for good things. There is a beautiful thing that happened time ago when, and I'm from Venice in Italy. Venice in Italy is a touristic town, okay? So there are in the suburbs or in the mainland, if you want, tons of photographers to develop all the pictures of those tourists. and also people local. And all of them had this Kodak machine where you put the roll inside, and after a while, all the pictures were coming out already cut and size. An automated system, literally the robot with there was this one person sitting there all day just collecting and delivering. And then digital photos start coming out. So the first digital camera, and one photographer understood that he needed to change his game, and he started becoming specialized about computer to do photo editing, to do printing in good paper for digital photo. Sure enough, after a while, all the other photographers closed down. You mean the developing picture places, because there was no market for them anymore. And this guy thrived because he had became the most important place where everybody was going, because it was already had the experience built up. Even the other were changing last minute. This is the story of a blockbuster with Netflix, if you want. You know what I mean? And in terms of decentralization, the opportunity that the blockchain offers, because blockchain has this magic thing. In a world of digital things, where copying stuff, binary 101, the copy is identical to the original, what it was missing is the possibility to have singularity, unicity. And the blockchain brings this, because if I give you my Bitcoin, I don't have it anymore. I cannot copy and paste my Bitcoin because it will be worth zero tomorrow, right? And these things means I can apply to many things. A document that is digital can be copied 1,000 times, but with a blockchain is a unique piece of document. So when that sign is one, if that's why the NFT becomes successful, not because the people paid as much money for the monkey, but the excitement to have a digital ownership of something that is digital. So I can put the title of my car in something like an NFT and share it to you, and you can prove that it's yours because I sent it to you. So this is a huge revolution in the digital world, right? And many companies that do document management, there is think about document versioning. A document versioning is just internal to a company. You cannot do a document versioning that is open for everybody, but with the blockchain you can, because you can follow document versioning. You have the document, you check it with the hash of the document against the blockchain, and you see what people commented about it. So you can really bring out when you deal with other party without having to say this company is the one that manage all our documents. I don't want, you know what I mean? So in this case, the company that want to step up their game and they want to enter this world to surf the wave that is coming up. So they come to somebody like me that's the experience to say, okay, look, what is your business? Teach me what you do, how you do it. Okay, give me experience. You can use all this new technology to solve this, or to support you in this, to reduce mistake here, and it is something that some people decide to do. In the moment, like the photographer, the wave is past. Those that didn't update are gonna be behind, because either you lead, you follow, or you get out of the way.
I get it. What are your goals for the next year as a professional and on the personal front? What do you want to build?
All right. Professionally, I am in a moment that I took some time off, more relaxed, like this. That's why I'm doing all these that podcast as well that are interesting to share things. I would love to restore a big project, a couple of big projects that I had in the past that are being left there, that are still very valuable today. So I will look at a certain point for people that want to join me in these ventures, finance the ventures, or whatever. On the personal aspect, my life is beautiful. I live in a beautiful place. I have a beautiful family. Probably I want to lose weight, which is really personal. I already put myself in a good place, but I need to work harder in that to go back in good shape. But that's pretty much it, because everything else is really nice. I'm very happy. I actually, there's something beautiful, no regrets. any day can be the good last day because I had a fantastic life until now. So I'm happy. I hope he's gonna go ahead for another 70 years, but now, yeah.
That's inspiring. Thank you, Roberto. Great
Thank you.
talking to you, and I wish you luck uh, in the endeavors that you plan.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me in your show.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.